Well, they say a band is only as good as the drummer. But what I think that statement should be edited to say the drummer and the bass player, they work together to create the groove and its pockets. And Guy is certainly one of the most amazing bass players ever.
And then, like Zakir Bhai, God bless his soul, would keep saying, why the definitions of music? Music is music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, it's interesting you bring it up because uh, what are we if not a melting pot of cultures? Look at the instrument sitar. There would be no sitar if two cultures, two religions, two points of view didn't come together. The veena, otherwise we would still be playing the veena, which
Yeah.
is the mother instrument. But then the advent of Sufism, the advent of Amir Khusro Sahab coming in and modifying this instrument into the beautiful lyrical sitar. We are a product of fusion. Now, when I thought like that name, a friend of mine came up with that name, and there was so much debate. People would say, "Why do you want to prove that classical music is cool?" I said, "I'm not trying to prove anything. Classical music is cool. It's just a
It's good.
name, but the name is very important because the name is what gets your attention."
Very, very pleased and privileged to have Purbayan Chatterjee, the sitar virtuoso, with me today. 3rd of January, 7:30 p.m. at a grand venue called the Grand Theatre at NMACC comes a show called the Sitar Stories. We're excited by it. He's even more excited because this brings together some of the finest musicians, not just in India, but the planet. Tickets are live at nmacc.com and also at Book My Show. So you can either go to Book My Show or nmacc.com. Or if you're in the area, which is Bandra Kurla Complex, Bandra, just stop by at the box office and get your tickets. So wonderful to talk to you, Purbayan. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas, and very happy festive season to all the listeners out there.
Lovely. I was at a gig which was part of the Mahindra I Rock Festival, the Independence Rock, and I saw Snarky Puppy playing. And what a band they are. You've curated an extraordinary global ensemble. A very important part of that is the five-time Grammy Award-winning guitar player Mike Lettieri. Do you know Mike from before? Have you collaborated? Is this a first time? I wonder.
So Mark Lettieri, and so actually, when you mentioned Snarky Puppy, and when they came to India and played, I think it was a couple of years before, I played with them, and
Correct. You
uh,
were on
and
stage. Yes.
I was on stage with them, and
This
and
was
Michael.
with the bay, the bay behind you.
Correct, that's right, that's
Yeah,
the
in
bay. Yes,
Severi. Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's when I met Mark, and Michael has been a friend because he's played on my record called Unbounded. And then since I was working on an album which was yet unnamed at the time, somehow I roped Mark into it. Now we've made a full record called Feathered Creatures, which is coming out next year sometime in the spring through Ground Up Music, which is the Snarky Puppy label. And a lot of the music that you'll hear on the 3rd of January at the Grand Theatre at NMACC is from that record. So it's a mixture of music from that record and music from another record called Sitar Stories that I had made with Yogesh Samsi. So I think to describe the evening, it's going to be it's almost going to be a crossover of not only two musical genres but two albums, two parts of the world, two cultures. Those of you who are in Mumbai, because this is also like tourism season, and the Grand Theatre at the NMACC is a tourist attraction worth visiting just to see the theatre. And if you have a bunch of good artists playing, then that's a bonus, I guess.
Of course, putting it modestly, considering the lineup that you've got there. So we've spoken about Mark Lettieri. Yogesh Bhai and you are friends. You've played together many a time. Talk to me about him coming into this and what it brings in terms of his artistry.
So Yogesh Bhai, as you correctly said, Yogesh Bhai and me have been playing for decades now. We've toured, back in the day, we've toured all over the world, in Europe and in the US. And he's somebody who is, I feel, who is very strongly rooted in tradition, but also very creative and very spontaneous and in the moment. He has a lot of experience with cross genre kind of thing, but it's going to be really interesting to see him in this setup because of late, I think in the last decade or so, he's established himself as one of the great gurus of the Punjab Gharana. He's certainly taken the mantle over from his guru and his son, both late Ustad Khan and late Ustad Zakir Hussain. So to see him in this kind of avatar, to see him kind of collaborate with different genres, with Guy Bernfeld, who's the bass player. He's a fabulous bass player who plays with the likes of Jesus Molina. It's going to be really interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Lovely. And you're throwing in a bit of Carnatic there. This is the flautist from Bengaluru. She's also a vocalist of repute. Tell me about Varijashree Venugopal.
So Varijashree is, I think she's a total wonder, and if you ask me, she is the cross-genre vocalist in India right now. And she's a Grammy nominee, and has worked with the likes of Jacob Collier. And bringing her in was also a natural. She's first of all she's part of the ground up ecosystem, common friends with Michael League, but also we've played together. We've done a show at the Mysuru Palace, Varija and me, and she's somebody who. Again, deeply rooted in tradition, but can use that tradition and the training that she has very effectively in whichsoever genre you put her in. I think the ability of being an improvisational musician stems largely from your ability to interpret, and largely from your ability to interpret in the moment. And she's amazing.
Stephen is your keyboard player. Um, he obviously brings a lot of cinematic flair, as it were, because he does a lot of sessions. He plays with a lot of bands in Chennai, a lot of film work in Chennai too, which again calls for a very different skill set. So talk to me about having him part of this motley crew.
So when you use the word cinematic, you actually hit the nail on the head. And Stephen is, as you say, is extremely adept at bringing in different sounds, in bringing in an ambiance, so to speak, which is larger than life. And we needed exactly somebody like this, especially for the songs from Feathered Creatures, because we have different things running all together in that album is, and I would be very excited for all of you guys to have a listen when it comes out. It's the space that it skirts is between EDM, between electronica, but then that and Indian classical music, ragas, some funk jazz, which is Mark's territory. So Stephen is the ideal, kind of bridge, ideal kind of backdrop for this to all come together.
You mentioned Guy Bernfield very briefly.
Right.
Harks back to a conversation that I had with Sting a couple of years ago when he was in India for Lollapalooza. And
Right.
he was talking about how bass players come singers like himself, Sting, Roger Waters, never get the credit that is due to them because it's the lead guitar players who have all the flair on stage and get to do all the theatrics. But really the bedrock of a great composition is a great bass line. Talk a
Indeed.
little bit about Guy as part of this ensemble.
Well, once again, I think this is worth looking at. A bass player brings so much to the ensemble. Well, they say a band is only as good as the drummer. But what I think that statement should be edited to say the drummer and the bass player, they work together to create the groove and its pockets. And Guy is certainly one of the most amazing bass players ever. Look, a bass player's job is twofold. And the first and most important job is to hold it together, to give the whole band a bedrock, a groove, which is, which carries the music through the song. But also the second job, obviously, so a bass player is a harmony player because he's playing the groove in harmonies in unison with the keyboard player. He's also a rhythm player because he's providing the groove with the drummer, and he's a melody player because he's often doing solos. And I think Guy kind of does all three. But with reference to your comment regarding bass players, I think Michael League has kind of shifted that equation quite a bit because he's the band leader of Snarky Puppy and he's the bass player and he writes all the songs. He's the front man as far as that's concerned.
Lovely. You just mentioned the very rich Punjab gharana that Yogesh Samsi comes from. You also have Shravan Samsi thrown in for good measure. Talk to me about what he's going to be playing.
So Shravan is a drummer, and he's a drummer par excellence. And it's a classic example of the tradition in the same family going and interpreting itself into something contemporary and new. Shravan is going to uh, not only provide the edge which we need on the drums, but he's also somebody I've played with quite a lot. So he knows a lot of my other songs other than the Feathered Creature songs, which we will also be playing. There's going to be a little classical section where, in fact, this was meant to be a bit of a surprise, but I want people to get excited about it. So I'm bringing this other instrument called the Surbahar, which is part of my sitar stories, which
Wow.
is this very traditional. So this concert is going to be almost like time travel because it's going to be Surbahar, which is Drupad, and going from there to EDM and electronica is going to be rather interesting.
So there is something for pure classical music lovers also. That's wonderful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because people like you always get quizzed, saying, there's so much of crossover happening. Where is the pure classical music? But you managed to find a wonderful balance. You're doing so many pure classical music concerts, and then like Zakir Bhai, God bless his soul, would keep saying, why the definitions of music? Music is music.
Yeah,
You know.
in fact, it's interesting you bring it up because uh, what are we if not a melting pot of cultures? Look at the instrument sitar. There would be no sitar if two cultures, two religions, two points of view didn't come together. The veena, otherwise we would still be playing the veena, which
Yeah.
is the mother instrument. But then the advent of Sufism, the advent of Amir Khusro Sahab coming in and modifying this instrument into the beautiful lyrical sitar. We are a product of fusion. Our culture is a product of fusion. And not to say that we should forget where we come from, but also not to say because where we come from is just a point of reference, but we're moving in time.
Mm, very well put. I think this segues very nicely into. I know we digress a little bit, but then, it is Zakir Bhai. It's been a year, Purbayan, since he passed. In fact, his Barsi just happened in Bombay. I'm sure you still miss him, like all of us fans. You are, of course, collaborators, friends. Talk about that loss and how, it can. I don't know if it's a loss because I suppose speaking to John McLaughlin, he said that he still feels him around.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you this. A couple of months ago, when I was in the US, I went to Zakir Bhai's final resting place. Went and met Tony Bhavi. Um, you can feel him around us all the time. But that's one side of it. On another side, the elevated soul that he was, I'm sure he's found his way to other realms and probably uh, send some energy back to us here. But I have to say that when you use the word Bursi, forever we went and we would perform at Abbaji's Bursi, and
Correct. Yeah,
Zakir
yeah.
Bhai would sit in the front rows. It's kind of unimaginable, to say that there's a Bursi for Zakir Bhai, but I think these things, more than anything else, if you look at it a little philosophically, these things are a bit of a reminder, and they should serve as a source of realization for most of us artists or most of us individuals that you can do your best to leave something good while you are here on this planet, and this is the reality.
The Sitar stories, coming up with a title, I understand now from this conversation that you're actually telling stories and you're going through various phases where we were and progressing into the future. But did it take you time to settle on the title? Or were there any other? I always like these, BTS behind the scenes bits. Were there any other contenders for the title before you settled it?
Well, look, I have to go back in time, really, in reality, and speak about another ensemble of mine called Classicool, which was also, I'm very thankful that the Grand Theatre and NMACC, they showcased that. Now, when I thought that name, a friend of mine came up with that name, and there was so much debate. People would say, why do you want to prove that classical music is cool? I said, I'm not trying to prove anything. Classical music is cool. It's just a
It's good.
name. But the name is very important because the name is what gets your attention. And that's
True.
all. I think, sometimes we Indians, and especially the so-called
Woke,
rakhwale of,
yeah,
yeah,
the woke generation.
no, yeah, exactly. The custodians of anything, they spend a lot of their time judging and trying to say this is right, that is wrong. But all you need is something that why Snarky Puppy? It's such a wonderful, catchy name. It gives you a visual, and Sitar Stories is, I think, in my opinion, is a name that kind of tells the story in its entirety. That this instrument, which is the centerpiece, has come a long way from the time of why Pandit Ravi Shankar. Let's go back a little, before that. If you go back to the time of Inayat Khan and the wax records that we had, the 2.5 minute wax records. From there to what Pandit Ravi Shankar did, made it a global instrument to the time of to our times and onwards. We have people doing all kinds of theatrics with the sitar, and it's all good because the instrument gets the chance to tell its story.
Oh, so beautifully put. Wonderfully put. I just want to talk about the acoustics at the Grand Theatre NMACC as a performer. As a audience, I was stunned. I remember going and seeing a Broadway musical there, and in good old Broadway fashion, there's a music pit where the musicians
Yeah,
are
there is
actually
indeed.
there playing
Yes.
the, as the musical plays out, which is so
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the design and the
Nowhere else in the
acoustics are,
country.
yeah,
Yeah.
your thoughts on the design and acoustics?
So that's a story in itself because first of all, I can't express my gratitude enough to the authorities at NMACC for thinking of me again and again, because when this theater was being built, and I think it was almost at its completion, and this is right towards the fag end of COVID, I think.
Hmm.
Um, when I was called in to test, they were putting in a certain sound system, they were experimenting with a certain kind of sound
Wow.
system, and they had
Yeah.
engineers come in from Holland, and we had the privilege and pleasure of curating a whole gamut of artists from different genres who would come and test that system, and cut to when I played with Classicool, my other ensemble, I realized that this is truly state of the art. We have when we have foreign artists coming in here, I'm sure Mark will be absolutely bedazzled because the kind of uh, tech that is at our disposal, including including theatrical stuff, including a cyclorama, something that drops in the front, a translucent kind of layer. You can really do so much with music and visuals at that space.
My last question is about the ensemble itself. I know a lot of this stuff is going to be, just jamming stuff on the fly, but are you going to get time to rehearse together? I mean, you're still about a week and 10 from the show. Just checking in.
So here's the thing. I got to tell you this. Become a bit of a joke. Is a lot of classical artists get on stage and proudly say we are just making it up. We haven't rehearsed. And I often, as a kid, I would ask myself the question is why haven't you rehearsed? You have this big stage and this platform, so we are going to rehearse. We are actually
Lovely.
the whole ensemble. I have a whole range of Zoom calls, stuff which has been already done across, and in addition to that, the musicians are flying in 2 days. We'll have 2 days of constant, so like 48 hours of through the clock work going on to kind of put it together. Of course, me and Mark have played together, me and
Sure.
Yogesh Bhai, as you said, for years,
Yes.
but you need to rehearse. You need to, even if you know the music, you need to put it in your muscle memory. You need to put it in your muscle memory together as a collective. It's so important.
Wonderful. Such a pleasure talking to you. And well, see you in the new year. And Merry
Looking
Christmas and
forward.
Happy New Year.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
That's Purbayan Chatterjee. Remember, 3rd of January, 7:30 p.m. at the Grand Theatre NMACC. Tickets are live now, going out very fast at Book My Show and at nmacc.com. Cheers, Sai. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
94.3 Radio 1.